Hello, and welcome to part one of our interview with the dispatcher June Browning. This is Lifeline. June Browning has served as a dispatcher for her agency for the last 22 years. Erica and I also discussed her work in our episode entitled Bulletproof, for how consistent and equal the work is. June serves as a senior dispatcher in her center, a trainer for future dispatchers, and as a resource for her fellow dispatchers when they need assistance. We have asked her on the show today to discuss her thoughts on the profession, how it's changed, and what opportunities she sees in the future. This is Lifeline. Welcome back to another episode of Lifeline 911 with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I'm your co host, Gary, and today we have on a very special guest and one of the show's biggest fans, June Browning. June, thank you for joining us.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
We're happy to have you.
Woohoo.
Uh, so, as I said in the introduction, you've been dispatching for a while. You started in 2003. So, do you want to kind of tell us how you kind of came about? How did your story as a dispatcher begin?
Oh, it's, I'm sure, a story as old as time. At the time that I applied for the city, I was working for the state for the WIC program, I believe. I had moved there from a cancer program that I was working and was separating, going through divorce, and was looking for jobs, needed, to make more money. I applied for call taking and dispatching at the same time. Got hired as a call taker and did that for a whole 2 months. Um, and RC, remember RC, pulled me over in the hallway and was like, "Hey, you applied for both dispatching and call taking, and we're really short on dispatchers. Do you want to give it a shot?" And it was more money. So I was like, "Sure, I could do that." We were in the kitchen at the main. If we remember that old couch that used to sit outside of that break room. I loved that couch. I was really sad it didn't make it with us when we moved out to CTEX. Because I crashed on that couch when I, was doing day shift, getting up early and not, used to the hours or whatever.
Mhm.
But started on DOS CAD and moved into VisiCAD when we moved out to CTEC, which was real nice, real fancy, and it just worked out. I mean, I loved it. I love dispatching.
Yeah. The bug, would you say the bug bit you? I mean, because I say a lot of times that it's, you either really, really love it or you really, really hate it. There's not a whole lot of in between. But I know for me, once
And
once I got the hang of it, the bug bit me, and I've been a lifer since.
yeah, I mean, there, when I was going through training, because back then it was a short 8 weeks and it was sink or swim. And, the choice for me was not a very hard one. It wasn't, if I don't get this right, what do I do? It was, I'm gonna get this right. And I had five trainers if I look back on it and think about it. And I ended with Cheryl on Edward on evenings, which we know was
Whew.
as big a war zone as the city could have, back in the early 2000s. And it was great. I mean, I just, I don't know how else to say that I remember it fondly. I remember, I didn't cry during training. I wasn't freaked out during training. Was I nervous? Of course. Was it stressful? Yeah, that's part of the job, but it wasn't anything that overtook me or consumed me because I had one goal, and that was to do it, to finish, to stay employed.
Yeah, yeah,
a good goal to have.
a good goal to
I
have.
mean, but honestly, the people that, were around me at that time, I remember Pat, I remember Harold very fondly, Cheryl, Dorcas, Tracy, what was that lady's name on Frank? I can see her face. Just, all of these people, there were so many good people. And every so often I'll actually get mistaken for Tracy Fun on the radio because apparently I've got that tone.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Um,
Yes, I can testify. Yes, yes. It's happened to
yeah,
me a couple of times, but when you train with someone like that, that leaves their mark, the way that she did, on us, because we came up. I wasn't very much older than you at the time in as far as our experience. Um, you were '03. I think I started at exactly 2000. I think it's like January something 2000 on the money. So, those were our seniors at the time, and we all came up watching them do things that we just didn't know if we would ever be able to do. So, like
right.
you, I watched and was just on a daily blown away at their skills. And talk about that's who I want to be when I grow up. That's how it was.
So
Yeah,
I think one of the really interesting things that sort of this conversation is highlighting is the at least in this profession, I think there's such strong legacy lines that kind of run through it because you think about, oh, this person trained me, and you train for a long time with people. And Erica, as you were saying, it leaves a mark on you. Whereas, you know, it's like a part of the person is, I don't want to say left behind, but they leave an imprint that
Hmm.
survives long past the end of their tenure
Yeah.
at a place.
Yeah.
yeah, it
Right.
certainly does. I mean, like Tracy was not one of my trainers. She was somebody that I actively observed because I knew just from the talk on the floor and just um, from watching her that she was really, really, really good dispatcher. And I wanted to also be a really good dispatcher. And she was always in control. She was always, had complete command of Charlie. And I could see, even though I didn't know it at the time, the implicit trust of the officers that she had.
Speed.
And there was no, if Tracy said it, just do it because Tracy said it,
Yep.
because Tracy knows what she's doing.
Mhm.
So, it was a whole group of people, but certainly she, left a mark. Harold left a mark. Pat Anderson left a mark. Um, friends that have come and gone, people that retired. I mean, I watched a little bit of everybody, Sue Orton,
Yeah.
just all kinds of people, that people, if I mention it to the people now, they're like, I don't know who that is. So it's like, you don't need to know who it is. Just like I have no idea who Verna is. I've heard her name so often
Mhm.
and get compared to her
Mhm.
from my senior officers. They're like, yeah, she was real mean, but we knew she was, she took care of us.
Yep.
But you just didn't mess with her and you didn't piss her off. And I'm like, I don't necessarily want that reputation. I want, my officers to feel safe or whatever with me, but don't argue with me.
So
Ten
what?
four works. 10-4 is great. Just 10-4. Give me.
Yes, that's
So
it.
what were the qualities that you were trying to, as a young dispatcher, get from your trainers? Like like if you had to say, what were the top two or three skills? Like, I mean, you mentioned trust as a quality to have as a mark of a good dispatcher. What are the other ones that you kind of see? Like, if you see that in a dispatcher, you're like, this person is top tier.
I would say very firm command of policy. You have to know what I can do and what I can't do for you. And I cannot veer from that because we're friends or because it's easy to say yes. And I think it is super important to, even if you aren't sure, you sound sure because they're counting on you. And while you're, you got to front, fake it till you make it, and then learning, okay, this situation come up, this is what I got to do. Okay, I did do it right, but I missed this one little detail, and I'll catch it next time because it's not life altering. But it's really, really important. I have people that are in classroom that will come out to observe, and I tell every single one of them, do not leave that classroom without knowing your power line commands and your shorthand abbreviations. I got the rest. I will teach you everything else. But if you don't have that foundation, that's just another hurdle you're going to have to jump that you don't need to do it now because they're finite. It's not endless. It's not whatever. It is black and white. It is always this.
You're not
So,
wrong. You're not wrong. So before we started the show last June, if there was a piece of advice, because we're talking about, the younger generation, which they are here. We need them because this group, we will retire at some
Die.
point or go on to do something else. Or you don't know. Or, I'd like to say it this way, we're either going to die, retire, or both. And
right.
we're leaving a generation of dispatchers behind and call takers behind, telecommunicators, what first responders, whatever the phrase is. We talk about them and we talk about how they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what the future holds for them, but we've been where they are. So I'd ask June, what piece of advice, or is there a phrase, or is there something that if you could go back and tell your 2003 self, what would it be? Knowing all that you know now. Or even if it's a couple of things, I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I have told my trainees that the struggle that they're going through is not new. If you look across the entire floor of the communications floor, everybody has been exactly where you are. And
Agreed.
they made it, and you can too. You just have to put in the work. I can't do it for you. I can teach you, but this is where you have to hold yourself accountable because I'm going to hold you accountable, but you've got to do it too.
Mhm.
There's a sense of urgency that we need people to have. Not let it control you, but this is an officer on the scene of God knows what, and it's important. It doesn't matter what it is, but he is out there. Sometimes he is out there alone, and you got to be engaged. You can't be just like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Be like, no, he's talking to you. 10-4, go ahead, and just pay attention, be mindful, and be teachable.
Yeah. Teachable is one of the
Absolutely.
hardest things. They come in knowing that you are there to teach them, but remaining teachable even beyond a certain point of having grasped, the stages. Because, anybody will tell you, that's even our colleagues listening to the show, they all know we teach in stages, right? You don't just go from 0 to 100 in a few days. We do everything in layers, and even after you've reached a certain level of competence, you still have to remain teachable in order to progress and to do well. And even after you're released from whatever your training program is, you still have to remain teachable because everything changes. There's always a new SOP or a new guideline or a new law that we have to follow.
Or my favorite, those directives. Those are my favorite.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, trainees kind of refuse to be cut loose until they've been through every possible scenario. And it's like it doesn't work that way.
Hold on.
I had one
Could refuse?
trainee girl, yes, ma'am. She
I
not
can
here
refuse.
anymore.
Hold on.
I don't think
Nobody told me I could
whoop,
refuse.
girl. So, I had my most recent trainee. She was able to observe a vehicle pursuit, a faux pursuit, using Air One, using K9, creating the perimeter,
Nice.
holding the channel, closing the channel, toning. I mean, and she was only with me 3 weeks on
Wow.
day shift. And so she had at least got to experience a lot of the things, that happen. And I will, if so God wills, I want to make it through my career not having worked in OIS from start to finish.
Right.
That is a personal goal of mine. I know that we have a few dispatchers that have worked a couple. I envy them not. Um, I worked the back end of Padrone's call, and that was hard enough. And so, I will let somebody else work that call if I don't have to.
That's
I'll
a
do a SWAT call all day long. I'll do a barricaded subject all day long. I'll do water rescue. I'll do all of it. Just, I prefer not to work that particular one. So,
yeah. That's a club. I can say, thing. As a member of that club, I'm good if I never ever ever
right.
ever have to do that again. It is no fun. But let me back up. How does one refuse to be cut loose? What does that even sound like?
Yeah. I remember her. I can see her face. I can't remember her name. She wasn't with us very much longer after that particular statement.
I'm,
This was a good 10 years ago,
I
maybe
should laugh.
longer.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand where here, especially here recently, where some of the trainees, kind of make a statement, I'm not going to do this, or they, want to argue with their trainer, or they're going to debate the issue. And I don't understand it because I don't get that. I just don't get it. And I'm not above saying, okay, you can go ahead and get the supervisor and to see what we're going to do for you the rest of the day. Because I've never thankfully encountered, that kind of issue, except the one time, that one man that about drove me to show, I was going to drive myself to Show Creek because I've never in my entire career encountered such a person that made me want to yank my eyeballs from my head,
Well,
throw them across the room, pull out
dang.
my hair. I no, it was terrible. It was terrible.
But you're still trained. So talk to me about that because you've been a CTO for years, not just a little bit. And you've on day shift, you get to lay the foundation for the rest of
Mhm.
their training. Talk to me about when you encounter someone that you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. How do you manage that? How do you continue even though you've seen some things? You've seen some people
Yeah,
and you've been right about a lot of them, as have I. How do you, for any of
right.
our CTOs that are listening or would be CTOs, because you've got some longevity in that, talk to me about what that's like.
I mean, it's, all about documentation. It's, goes back to the being teachable. It goes back to, trying to sometimes break down what happens in the classroom and well, that's not how we did it in class, or that's not how we did it at our other agency, if it's somebody that's coming in from somewhere else. And I'm like, well, congratulations, you're not in class and you're not in your other agency. So here we're going to do ABC 1, 2, 3. There's no subsection, no other variables. I'm going to tell you exactly what to say so that you are comfortable,
Right.
what makes sense to you. And if you divert from what I've said, I'm going to have you tell me why. Why did you do that? To see if I can understand, where you're coming from. But Me, I'm able to defend every single move I make. And you will need to be able to do the same. And so if I've said, here's the scenario, here's how it's going to play out, and we do everything up to like the last couple steps and you want to do something else, tell me why. And then if the answer is, well, I don't know why. Okay, so we're just being difficult. We're being like we're losing track. I need something more than that because that's not an answer.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's
So,
more than just going rogue.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Would you say that since you've been a trainer for so long, has there been a change in the type of people that come in terms of like how malleable or resistant they are to training and direction over time? Because we always hear about, oh, different generations, like, you know, they used to say about the millennials, like they were terrible, and then Generation Z, they're terrible, and then Generation Alpha now, they're terrible. But is there really any kind of a difference in the mentality, or is that just sort of hogwash?
No, I do believe that. I believe that these new hires or whatever, they're usually very early 20s, mid 20s or whatever. I find that it really depends on, kind of what they've done before. Do they have any kind of background in customer service? Was it even if it was at Wendy's, you still gotta, present yourself in a certain way. And I think that especially here lately with some of the new hires, you know, somebody walks in with a stuffy with their stuffed animal.
Oh, what now?
They have the security blanket. They've got, their things that they have to have, which is cool if that's, how you function or whatever. But now we need to put those things away because we got to be over here. They're talking to you on the radio.
Hmm.
So I've found that some people, do have some things that they have to get them through the day, I suppose. And it's fine, but we need to be able to shift our focus because we do need to be very focused. And I've found honestly that radio air is not as bad because of cell phones. Um, I feel like people can hear a lot better with the cell phone. Even the reason that they're not understanding the officers is because it's a different language. Yeah, it's English. Yeah, it's lay language, but it's still APD terminology.
Yeah.
And so it is like learning, say for me, French, because it did take me a minute. But if you listen to the trainer, that's what this means. That's
Hmm.
what when they say it like this, that's what it means. And so I'm interpreting for you while you're building your radio ear. So the ear is there, it's just not understanding the words, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, it's beautifully said. It's a different language. It's a different culture. So they have to learn the language for, and
Right.
they don't have to be overly versed in it, but that's where that foundation comes along. That's where listening to the trainer comes along. That's where you, as the CTO, you use the word a few times. I don't even know if you realize it. You use the word teach versus train. And I'm a firm believer in that. We begin the process by teaching them, because you can train circus animals and dogs and cats and whatnot, but I think the repetition is what trains. But I think it begins with teaching, and I love that you use that word. I don't even know if you realize how many times you use it.
Oh, no, I guess I didn't because it's, because the other part of being a dispatcher too is your critical thinking. We have to think about things strategically. There's a certain mindset because of the multitasking that we do, because we're not talking one on one with somebody. Sometimes you've got 10 officers, sometimes at night you've got 30, and you have to be able to keep track of all of them. And I know
Yeah.
that multitask is a dirty word, in the normal world that, is outside of the comm floor, but we have to be able to keep all those strings tied and untied easily and quickly if that's what we need to do. And
Agreed.
it's I don't know how I do it sometimes. Honestly, I feel like an octopus, because I'm on the phone, I'm talking on the radio, I'm, you know, answering a message, all of these things. And, it takes skill to get to where I am, but I can do it. If I can do it, people can do it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so, I like having conversations, with people that on night shift that leave. There's a couple of people that I've talked to that kind of struggle with the feeling of getting different answers depending on who they ask. And so I'm like, okay, well, no. If this is the scenario, then this is the answer. And if you're getting a different answer, then you can question that, obviously, in a respectful manner.
Sure.
But, policy is black and white. And yes, there are variables that can kind of, change that thing, but the meat of it
Hmm.
is not something that you can mess with. So,
Mhm.
they people chuckle at me because they're like, "Oh, June, I wish I had, your surety, your confidence, your, kind of no nonsense, way how you respond to things." I was like, that comes with time. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had an attitude before I got here, and I know that the attitude in the end is probably what will get me, but I don't do it just to be mean or because I can. I do it because everybody's going home. If I
Right.
got to fight with you so that you can go home to your family, I'll do that. I don't want to do that, but I'll do it.
Absolutely.
And you just got to know when.
Yeah, I always found it very interesting because I think a lot of people um, kind of take you as, I don't want to say mean or aggressive, but I think you said very pointed. Like you're very matter of fact. This is how it is, and that comes off sometimes as very, uh, very difficult for sensitive people sometimes to kind of deal with because you directly say what you're thinking. But to me, I think that's a a really good quality to have because you're always, and we kind of talked about it in the Bulletproof episode when we were talking about you. You're like, what does the policy say? How do we enact it? And where do we go from here? And um, full disclosure, I'm June's supervisor, so I get to speak with her about this quite a bit. Um, but there's lots of times when I'm like, uh, this bulletin went out or that bulletin went out, but it's not necessarily like fully integrated into policy yet. So it kind of makes a little bit of a gray area that I completely understand why it's hard to operate in that. Because you're like, especially as a trainer, you're like, I'm looking for the specific answer to give to, both myself, my officers, and my trainee. And if I just have sort of, you know, mm, disagreeing opinions on it, I can't really do my job effectively. So I absolutely get that.
And
Yeah,
that's
I mean, I
and we
know,
all wrestle with that, I think.
yeah, for sure, because I feel, sometimes honestly that I'm being gaslit because we had this exact scenario 2 weeks ago. We handled it completely differently. Why is it different today? And not in a negative way, but it's like I know I have seen this dog before. I know I've heard that same bark. I know I've been here. Why was it okay when I did it the other day and now somebody else wants to get on my case about it? So yeah, I mean I think it's, it really, really important to know those policies. And I take pride. And I know people get so tired of hearing me say it, but I take so much pride in the work that we did back in 2010 when we wrote the SOPs because it was a really, really big project and it was so much dedicated work from all levels, on the com floor. And so, I'd say it to everybody. I'm sorry, I was there when we wrote the policy. I know exactly what the intent and the spirit. is of that policy. And I think people find that off-putting, but I can't help that all the time.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of our interview with the dispatcher, June Browning. Part 2 will continue next week.
Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about today's topic or topics you'd like to cover in the future, please reach out to us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. This has been a production of Lifeline 911, copyright 2026. Until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.